So as you can see, like I have already created this configuration for Elasticsearch login, where I have used the boolean variable, then Elasticsearch URL, API key and index format. So as you know, like whatever data we are going to store or save into the Elasticsearch, it will store based on the index. Okay. Now what we can do, we can go ahead with the program.cs and we'll add some configuration related stuff. So let's create the variable called config first. So let's here add var config, where we can use web application, builder.configuration. We can use the builder object directly dot configuration. Builder object is already been created on the line number 1. Okay, so by using config variable, we can access the configuration keys which we have kept into the app settings.json. So now let's create login config, or sorry, we'll give the name that is for logger config, and in the logger config, let's say new logger configuration. Logger configuration. Okay. Now we are getting an error. Now see why error we are getting. I think we'll have to install few NuGet packages. So I think we forget to install the NuGet packages, that we have to install it. So let's go to the solution, right click on the solution, click on the manage NuGet package, and if we into the manage NuGet package, let's click on the browser. Now let's we have to install 4 NuGet packages, that is Serilog.ASP.NET Core. Now click install, click apply. It will take some time to install. And now you can see the version has been installed. The version or the package, NuGet package Serilogger ASP.NET Core is installed. So that's why you can find the uninstall update button. Similarly, install one more package that is called Serilog sync.elasticsearch, as we are performing the login to Elasticsearch DB. So that's why we have to install their package also. So now let's click apply and wait for some time. And you can find the Elasticsearch NuGet package also been installed. Now let's click on the next package, that is enrichers.environment. Now let's click on apply. Now you can see this package is also being installed. Now the last package, that is called enrichers.thread. Okay, now this is the last package. Now let's click on apply. Now you can see the 4 package have been installed. Now let's close this and let's click on the logger configuration, and you can find it started giving us the namespace, right? So we have imported the namespace that is using Serilogger. Okay, so as you can see, the error has been gone for logger configuration. So inside the logger configuration, let's add a few methods, that is .enrich from log context, then .enrich with machine name, with machine name, again .enrich with thread ID, again .enrich with property, and inside that with property we'll have to give some property name that is called application we can give as of now, and let's we'll give the Elastic logging demo. Okay, so this is the basic configuration of logger configuration. Now we'll have to read, like as we have mentioned, like if the flag is true, if the use elastic flag is true, then our code is going to log the data into the Elasticsearch. Else it will log into the text file. So we'll have to read the config property. So let get value, let bool, and inside the bool let's give the proper property name, that is logging config dot use elastic. So logging config colon use elastic. So this is how we can we have to read the app settings value or configuration value. Okay, so if it is true, then logger config Then we'll have to add the configuration of Elasticsearch, like connecting with Elasticsearch indexes and all those stuff. Then like logger config dot write to dot Elasticsearch. Inside the Elasticsearch, let's create a new object that is Elastic sync option. So let's try to import this namespace on top rather than using here. That is using Elasticsearch and Elasticsearch sync option. And inside that, let's create a new URI. Inside that new URI, let's add the config variable. That is, we'll have to read the Elastic URL. So you know, like in the configuration, we have already kept the Elastic URL. So the same thing we have to pass it to here. Okay. So we'll check what kind of error we have. We'll have to resolve the error first. Config login config the Elastic URL. Okay, now let's do the open close. Still there is an URL. Still there is an error. A new URI. Then config. Let's try to remove this. Let's try to add this again. Now login config. Let's try to add this login config. And then Elastic URI. Okay, still there is an error. Okay, I think there is something missing. Okay, we'll try to add the rest of the configuration and we'll see. We'll have to use auto register template. That is called true. Then index format. So as you can see, like index format, we have already set it to config. Okay. So same thing we have to use. We have to read the index format from config itself. So the config, login config, then index format. Okay. And next is modify connection setting. Modify connection settings. These are the configuration that we have to do initially for connecting with the Elasticsearch. So x dot API key authentication, and inside that API key authentication, again we'll have to use config object with API key. Okay, so just copy everything, and instead of index format, let's copy the API key. Now it is done. Now let's try to close it. Okay, now let's try to give the semicolon. Still there is one error, so we'll try to resolve that error. So this is if condition, next else condition. So if it is not, then let's do the logger config dot write to dot file. Okay, if no Elasticsearch, then we can log to file. So let's create folder called logs and then log.txt. Okay, inside that log.txt, then add comma, then rolling interval equals to day. So just we'll have to add this configuration, simple configuration. Now it's time to resolve the error. So what is the error? Cannot convert string to credential. Okay. Something we have missing. Let's try it out here. Okay. So as you can see, like previously I was working on the different method that is called API key authentication credential, right? So I will just show you. I made some small modification here because I am not getting the ID. Like this is what I was using previously. So API key authentication I was using previously, which is accepting two parameters, that is API key and API ID. But I think I was not able to find the ID as I am using the free trial version of Elasticsearch. So rather than using the API key authentication, I am using the API key authentication credential, which is required only API key. Okay. So as you can see, like there is no error. Error is gone. And now we'll have to see like what are the changes we'll have to make into the program.cs again. So let's create a log.logger equals to logger config dot create log. Oh, sorry, create logger. And then builder dot services dot add controller. Okay. Now builder.build is already here. And okay. Now let's we have to create a custom middleware also. So now let's try to register the custom middleware, and inside the custom middleware let app.use, and inside the app.use middleware let's give the name that is request response logging middleware. Okay, we'll have to create this middleware. Okay. So as of now, I have created this class, or I have registered this middleware. Now let's try to create the custom exception. So let's create a new folder here first. That is called exceptions. And inside that exceptions, we'll have to create the classes. So that is called as let's create